What was once presented as a modern fairy tale, the union of a global football dynasty and an American billionaire family, has slowly revealed itself as something far more fragile and unresolved. At its center stand Brooklyn Beckham and Nicola Peltz, a couple who appear unified in public, yet exist within the gravity of two powerful families whose differences have moved from quiet tension to open fracture. This story is no longer about a single wedding moment or an isolated public gesture. It is about control and identity, inheritance and autonomy, and what happens when legacy collides with a young man's attempt to define a life that belongs to him. Brooklyn Beckham was born into visibility. As the eldest son of David and Victoria Beckham, his childhood unfolded under constant observation. Cameras, headlines, security, and expectation shaping nearly every stage of his development. Anonymity was never an option. Those who knew him early describe a life that appeared privileged and glamorous, yet operated within rigid structures and unspoken rules. That pressure did not recede with age. As Brooklyn moved from football to photography, from fashion to cooking, each reinvention was met with scrutiny and comparison, measured against a family brand built on discipline, restraint, and meticulous control of image. Nicola Peltz came from a different kind of world. Not one sustained by public approval, but by private power. Her father, Nelson Peltz, built influence far from cameras, in boardrooms rather than headlines. The Peltz family's wealth does not require performance or validation, and that distinction would prove consequential. When Brooklyn and Nicola married in 2022 at her family's Palm Beach estate, the ceremony marked more than a union of two people. It symbolized the meeting of two fundamentally different systems, one public, one private, each with its own expectations of loyalty and authority. From the outside, the event appeared seamless and celebratory. Inside, it became a point of quiet rupture. Brooklyn has since said that tensions with his parents predated the wedding, that Nicola never felt fully accepted, and that concerns about image often outweighed personal boundaries. According to his account, the defining moment came during the reception, when the first dance he had planned with his wife was unexpectedly replaced by a dance with his mother. He later described the experience as disorienting and deeply uncomfortable, unfolding in front of a room full of witnesses. Nicola reportedly left in tears, followed by members of her family, while Brooklyn remained on stage, caught between roles he did not choose. The mood shifted. What might have passed as awkwardness became something heavier. For Nicola, the moment carried meaning beyond the gesture itself. It raised questions about emotional priority, respect, and whether the marriage would ever come first. Those close to the situation suggest that this was when boundaries hardened. In the months that followed, Brooklyn's distance from his family became visible. He appeared less often at Beckham gatherings. Communication slowed, then fractured. His alignment moved decisively toward his wife and her family. When Brooklyn eventually spoke publicly, the tone surprised many. His statement was measured but unyielding. He described years of feeling unheard, of narratives managed and emotions deferred, and framed his decision to speak not as retaliation, but as necessity. He said he was choosing his wife. What lingered was not only the content of his words, but their finality. He expressed little interest in reconciliation and questioned the perfection long associated with his family's public image. The result is not a spectacle of open hostility, but a quieter, more enduring tension. A son asserting autonomy, parents absorbing a public reckoning. A marriage shaped by the need for clear boundaries. Beneath it all lies an unresolved question: whether independence can be claimed without loss, and whether stepping out of a legacy inevitably means leaving parts of it behind. Behind closed doors, David and Victoria Beckham are said to have been deeply shaken. Those close to them describe two parents struggling to process not only the substance of their son's words, but the manner in which they were delivered, publicly, irrevocably, and without warning. Beneath the shock sat a quieter fear, the possibility that this distance might become permanent. Even now, there is a belief that reconciliation remains possible, but only through time, restraint, and a kind of healing that cannot be rushed or forced. It is here that the underlying power dynamics become difficult to ignore. The Beckham legacy was built in full view of the world, through discipline, performance, and constant exposure. Every decision was shaped by optics, every moment filtered through brand, responsibility, and expectation. The Peltz family operates differently. Their influence exists away from cameras, rooted in private networks and long-standing authority. Public validation is not required. Loyalty is not displayed. It is enforced quietly. These are two systems with fundamentally different rules. For Brooklyn, the shift may feel like relief. Within the Peltz family, He is not a symbol or a product. He is not asked to carry a global image or stand in comparison to a legacy that predates him. He is not expected to perform unity for an audience. Yet that sense of freedom is not without its own weight. Even in quieter circles, expectations remain. Achievement is still assessed. Independence is still scrutinized. And his continued search for a stable professional identity lingers as an unspoken pressure, one that has not disappeared, only changed shape around him. His siblings appear to be navigating a different path. Cruz Beckham has focused publicly on music, receiving visible support from both parents and family. Romeo continues his professional and modeling work. The wider Beckham family has chosen restraint, offering little commentary and avoiding escalation. That silence, too, communicates something. It reflects a preference for containment over confrontation, distance over display. This conflict has never been defined by shouting or spectacle. There are no leaked recordings, no public outbursts. What makes it difficult is its quietness. It is a struggle over emotional allegiance. A son who feels unheard. Parents who feel blindsided. A wife who believes that boundaries were crossed once too often. And beneath it all sits a question that remains unresolved. Whether Brooklyn has truly stepped into independence, or whether he has simply moved from one powerful structure into another. As the distance persists, one reality becomes clear. When families defined by influence and legacy come into conflict, love does not vanish, but it is often overtaken by control, pride, and the need to preserve authority. Brooklyn Beckham now stands between two worlds shaped by very different values. His next steps may not offer resolution, but they will reveal where he believes he belongs, or whether belonging itself has become the cost of choosing autonomy. With Nicola, Brooklyn encountered a different emotional landscape. She did not grow up needing to perform for public approval or measure her worth through visibility. Validation was not a currency in her world. An image was never expected to come before feeling. To her, moments carry weight. Boundaries matter. Loyalty, particularly within marriage, is not negotiable. That context is essential to understanding why the wedding incident became something more enduring than a misunderstanding. For Nicola, it was not about a dance. It was about what that moment suggested, whether the marriage would ever be allowed to take precedence. Those close to the situation suggest that realization altered how she imagined her place within the Beckham family, and with it, the future she was willing to accept. From that point forward, Brooklyn's position shifted. He no longer acted as an intermediary. He stopped softening language, stopped absorbing discomfort to preserve calm. And when he eventually spoke publicly, his words were restrained but definitive. There was no attempt to balance narratives or leave space for reinterpretation. He did not extend an olive branch. He marked a boundary. What unsettled many observers was not the statement itself, but the resolve that followed. Those close to Brooklyn say he feels no regret, only a sense of release. That remaining silent would have meant losing a part of himself. In his own understanding, this was not defiance. It was preservation. From his parents' perspective, the impact has been deeply painful. David and Victoria Beckham are said to be wounded not only by the accusations, but by the sense of finality surrounding them. For parents who spent decades shielding their children from the harsher edges of public life, seeing their eldest son articulate his grievances so openly has felt like a profound rupture. There is concern that Brooklyn is withdrawing too far, too fast, that lines are being crossed from which return may be difficult. And yet, despite the distance, those close to the family maintain that the door has not been closed. Communication may be minimal, but the hope remains that time, perspective, and restraint could soften what now feels immovable. That hope is complicated by a difficult truth. Reconciliation would demand compromise. And compromise requires trust, something neither side appears ready to offer. Brooklyn would need acknowledgement that his experiences are valid, that boundaries were crossed, that his marriage is to be respected without qualification. The Beckhams, in turn, would need assurance that family unity will not be challenged publicly, that private conflicts will remain private, that restraint can once again exist without resentment. Nicola would need confidence that stepping back would not reopen old patterns. It is a fragile balance, made more precarious by the fact that this conflict now exists in full public view. Every choice Brooklyn makes is examined. Every absence is noted. Every gesture of support from the Peltz family is interpreted. Even silence carries meaning. His past is being reconsidered through a new lens, childhood moments once framed as privilege now understood as pressure, structure, and expectation. Public response remains divided. Some see an overdue act of independence. Others see a painful rejection of parents who devoted their lives to protecting him. Nicola is alternately described as resolute or inflexible. What is often missing from these judgments is complexity. This is not a story of heroes and villains. It is a collision of values. One world prioritizes endurance, restraint, and the management of image for the sake of continuity. The other prioritizes emotional loyalty, firm boundaries, and decisive action. Brooklyn chose one path over the other, and choices of that scale rarely come without consequence. What happens next remains uncertain. Time may soften positions, or it may deepen distance. Reconciliation, if it comes, will not resemble the past. It will not be performative or public-facing. It would likely be quieter, more cautious, shaped by what has already been lost. And if it does not come at all, then Brooklyn Beckham's story becomes something else entirely, not the extension of a legacy, but a departure from it. A choice of identity over inheritance, marriage over tradition, privacy over brand. Whether that choice brings peace or isolation is still unknown. What is clear is that this conflict was never about a single moment. It is about power, control, and the lasting cost of stepping out from under a shadow built long before one has the language to describe it.